The glow comes before the shape, before the heat, before the silence sharpens. You're in Venice, but not the Venice of postcards, not the gondolas or the tourists. This is the Venice of glass, of trade, of secrets, and of threats whispered through walls. You're standing in the island district of Murano, just across the water from the heart of the city. The air is warm with furnace heat. Men move quickly between roaring ovens and cold stone work tables, turning glowing rods of molten glass with practiced hands. These are mirror makers, artisans of the highest order, revered, protected, watched. Because in the 1500s, Venice makes the finest mirrors in the world. Not polished metal, not cloudy panes. These are smooth, brilliant, silver-backed glass mirrors, clearer than anything Europe has ever seen, and they're worth a fortune. Nobles pay more for a mirror than for a painting. Kings send emissaries just to negotiate for one. France is desperate to learn how they're made. But Venice doesn't share. They guard the process with obsessive secrecy. The mirror makers of Murano are forbidden from leaving, ever. The city grants them wealth, status, and protection, but they're not allowed to take their knowledge anywhere else. If they try, they're hunted down. Not metaphorically, literally. According to more than one account, Venetian agents tracked and assassinated mirror makers who fled to Paris, Florence, or beyond. Some were poisoned. Others simply vanished. The city would rather lose a life than lose a trade secret. And all this intrigue, the whispers, the danger, the price of reflection, exists because we wanted to see ourselves. But the story of mirrors doesn't begin in Venice, or in glass, or in silver. To tell the full story, we have to go far further back. Before assassins, before industry, before cities, to a time when seeing your own face was rare, uncertain, shadowy. The first mirrors were not made. They were found. Imagine a still pool of water. Thousands of years ago, a human kneels, looks down, and sees a face staring back. Rippling, shifting, fleeting. A reflection born of sunlight and silence. The earliest mirror was just a moment, gone with a gust of wind or a tossed stone. Eventually, someone tries to hold that moment in their hand. Around 6000 BCE, in what is now Turkey, people begin to polish obsidian volcanic glass into small reflective discs. These weren't shiny the way modern mirrors are. They were dark, opaque, like staring into solidified smoke. But they worked. You could glimpse your face, a flicker of identity, a flash of self. These early mirrors weren't just tools. They were treasures, buried with the dead, stored with sacred objects, symbols of power or magic or memory. Later, in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, mirrors were crafted from polished bronze and copper, still metal, still heavy. They gleamed more than they reflected, a halo more than a face. Egyptian tombs held hand mirrors shaped like ankhs, the symbol of life, their polished faces catching light like the sun. In Greece and Rome, mirrors grew more ornate, framed, etched, gilded. Philosophers like Socrates and Plato spoke of mirrors not as vanity, but as reflection of thought, a metaphor for understanding the world. And still, they were mostly owned by the elite. To see yourself clearly was not a universal right. It was a privilege. The glass mirror hadn't been invented yet, but the idea of the mirror as identity had taken hold. To look in a mirror was not just to check your face. It was to wonder who you were. Glass came quietly. At first, it was nothing special, a curiosity pulled from the fire. Around 2000 BCE, in Mesopotamia and Egypt, glass was shaped into beads, vials, and thin plates. But it was cloudy, bubbled, fragile. Not the kind of thing you'd expect to reveal a face. Still, the shimmer was there. By the time the Romans arrived, glassmaking had become a craft. They blew it, molded it, used it for windows. Barely transparent, but decorative. Someone, at some point, tried laying metal foil behind a thin pane. Maybe tin. Maybe lead. It didn't reflect perfectly, but it caught light. A rough reflection appeared. The beginnings of something new. It wouldn't catch on. Not yet. The world wasn't ready for that level of detail. Because true mirrors, clear, faithful, undistorted, required more than materials. They required chemistry. And chemistry needed time. While Europe faded into the early medieval period, something brilliant stirred in the Islamic world. Between the 8th and 13th centuries, scholars from Baghdad to Cordoba began translating and preserving Greek and Roman texts, but they didn't stop there. They expanded them, questioned them, improved them. They studied optics, the science of light. One man, in particular, stood at the center of it all. His name was Ibn al-Haytham, often Latinized as Al-Hazen. Around the year 1000, he wrote the Book of Optics, which fundamentally changed how the world understood vision. He proposed that light bounced off objects and into the eye, not the other way around. He experimented with lenses, reflection, and refraction. He built the intellectual foundation for everything that mirrors would eventually become. He didn't invent the modern mirror, but he gave it purpose. The path from observation to understanding. Glassmakers took note. Across the Islamic world, artisans refined their techniques. They worked with silver and tin amalgams, carefully applied to glass to create the first truly reflective surfaces. Still expensive, still delicate, but far clearer than metal alone. These mirrors traveled, traded, gifted, envied. By the time Europe emerged into the Renaissance, whispers of this technology had already begun to circulate. Shimmering objects that showed not just a shadow of a face, but a true, polished image. A likeness so accurate it could startle. And in Venice, a handful of glassmakers listened. They knew glass, they knew fire, they had everything, almost. What they needed was control. The water laps quietly at the edges of the city. Venice, in the 1400s, is a marvel. A city of canals, of merchants, of masked balls and political games played in whispers. It thrives on trade, on spice, on silk, and now on glass, specifically Murano glass. Murano is an island just off Venice's edge, close enough to serve the Republic, but far enough to keep its furnaces away from the timbered heart of the city. There, under government order, glassmakers work with dangerous precision. They are masters of their craft. And what they create begins to shimmer unlike anything before. Flat, clear, luminous. They've learned how to make sheets of glass smoother than water. And then, behind those sheets, they apply a mercury tin amalgam carefully brushed across the surface like frosting. Hazardous, fume-laden. But it works. The result is a mirror so pure, so reflective, that it feels like a new kind of magic. The world notices. In France, nobles hear stories. In England, courtiers whisper. And the Republic of Venice knows this is no ordinary product. This is a weapon of prestige, a symbol of wealth, of power, of control. And so, Venice tightens its grip. The mirror makers of Murano are given great status, but also shackles. They are not allowed to leave the city. They are not allowed to share their techniques. They are watched. Sometimes flattered. Sometimes threatened. The secrets must stay within the lagoon. Because the mirrors sell for incredible sums. One mirror might cost more than a small house. Monarchs collect them like relics. Entire rooms are designed around their placement. You don't just buy a mirror, you prove something by owning one. And so, the danger grows. Eventually, a few artisans are lured away. They're promised fortune, they sneak out, or are bribed, or fall in love with the idea of freedom. They travel to France, to England, to Bohemia, and then they vanish. It's never loud, never official, but the rumors persist that Venetian agents track them, that they were poisoned, that they were found in foreign cities, their bodies slumped in alleyways, or their ships lost at sea. Venice denies it, of course, but the message is clear. Some reflections are not meant to escape. And yet, the secret still leaks. You can't hold a reflection in your hand forever. In 1665, France creates its own mirror works under Jean-Baptiste Colbert, advisor to King Louis XIV. They poach Venetian artisans and finally break the monopoly. Just a few years later, the Hall of Mirrors is constructed at Versailles, the ultimate symbol of royal vanity and technological independence. The mirrors of Murano still shine, but they are no longer alone. The mirror is no longer locked away in palaces. By the 18th and 19th centuries, mirrors begin to appear in more ordinary homes. Not everywhere, not for everyone, but the shift has begun. They shrink. They become portable. Less like treasure, more like furniture. Wall mirrors, vanity mirrors, folding compacts with tiny hinges. Reflection becomes routine. You see yourself more often. In the morning, in the evening, before a gathering, after a long day. You notice things. Not just about your appearance, but about time, about aging, about change. Mirrors don't just show your face, they remind you. And so the superstitions creep in. Some cultures have always seen mirrors as sacred, or dangerous, or both. In ancient China, mirrors were believed to reveal one's true nature, showing spirits as they really are, or even warding off evil. Many mirrors were made of polished bronze, etched with protective symbols on the back. They were placed in tombs, hung in homes, treated with quiet reverence. In Japan, the mirror is one of the 3 sacred treasures of the imperial regalia, alongside a sword and a jewel. It symbolizes wisdom and honesty. You cannot lie to your own reflection. But elsewhere, darker ideas took root. The belief that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck comes from the Romans, who thought that your reflection contained part of your soul. Damaging it was seen as a wound to the self, one that took 7 years, the full cycle of regeneration, to heal. In Victorian Europe, mirrors were often covered after someone died, to prevent their soul from getting trapped in the glass. Some households still do this, a tradition passed down like a whisper. People began to avoid mirrors at night. You shouldn't look too long. You shouldn't look by candlelight. You shouldn't sleep with one facing your bed. Mirrors, they said, can reflect not just the room, but things you didn't know were there. And yet, we kept using them. We designed mirror rooms filled with endless reflections. We painted mirrors into portraits. We turned them into devices for science, for fashion, for decoration, for magic. By the time the 20th century arrives, Mirrors are everywhere. On walls, in cars, in elevators, in department stores with their strange, endless angles. We barely notice them now, but they're always there, quiet, patient, reflecting without judgment. A mirror doesn't care if you look tired or if you look beautiful. It just shows you what's there. And what's there is always shifting. At some point, the mirror stops being just about us. Not about faces, or appearances, or even identity. It becomes a way of seeing more. In the quiet corners of laboratories, observatories, and workshops, mirrors begin to take on a new role, not as reflections of the self, but as tools, as instruments of perception, ways to gather light, shape it, bend it. In the early 17th century, a man named Galileo Galilei turns a telescope toward the night sky. He doesn't use mirrors yet, just lenses, but what he sees changes everything. Moons around Jupiter, craters on the moon, phases of Venus. The heavens, once perfect and untouchable, become real, imperfect, familiar. Then comes Isaac Newton. In 1668, he builds the first reflecting telescope, using a curved mirror to collect and focus light. Unlike lenses, mirrors don't distort colors. They gather more, reveal more, let us peer deeper into space. And so, the mirror becomes a gateway, from Earth to stars. Over time, the mirrors grow, from small discs to wide, silvered bowls. The Hale telescope, the Hubble Space Telescope, and now the James Webb. Each one built around a mirror, polished to perfection, floating in the cold silence of space, collecting light that's taken billions of years to arrive. We no longer just see ourselves. We see the beginning of time. And yet, closer to home, the mirror evolves in other ways. In microscopes, they let us peer inward into cells, bacteria, molecules. The world becomes layered with scales we can't see until the mirror shows us how. In cameras, mirrors bounce light toward film and sensors. They freeze time, capture emotion, preserve memory. Every photograph is a mirror's cousin, a moment caught, reflected, and saved. Even in computers, in lasers, fiber optics, and quantum experiments, mirrors guide beams of light with silent precision. They don't speak, they just show. And still, they stay with us in simpler ways. In the bathroom, the hallway, the corner of the store, the rear-view mirror as you drive home at night. They're everywhere now. And most of the time, you don't even notice. But sometimes, just sometimes, you pause. You catch your own eyes. And something quiet passes between you and the glass. Not a thought, not a word, just recognition. The mirror no longer hangs alone on the wall. It moves, it shrinks, it multiplies. Now it lives in your phone, your tablet, your screen. You open the camera and there you are. But it's not just you. It's a version, a moment, a mirrored echo lit from above or below, softened by filters, tilted slightly, always watching. We live in a time of mirrored selves. Selfies, video calls, snapshots, faces reflected back dozens of times a day, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. The mirror becomes less of an object and more of a behavior. You check, you adjust, you glance without thinking. And behind each glance is a question. soft and unspoken. Is that really me? The ancient fears haven't left us entirely. We still worry about reflections, though now it's in the angles of photos, the glitches of a video feed, the dissonance between how we look and how we feel. Modern mirrors don't just reflect light, they reflect expectations. You might take 100 photos to find the real one, but which is real? The mirror says, all of them. The mirror says, none of them. And still, we return to it, not out of vanity, but out of curiosity, out of comfort, out of ritual. Just as someone once stared into obsidian glass in Anatolia 6,000 years ago, you stare into a screen in a dark room looking for something, not just to see, but to understand. And mirrors haven't stopped evolving. They're in smart homes now, responding to your voice, adjusting their glow. Some display the weather, others offer affirmations. Some connect to your wardrobe and suggest outfits based on the day's schedule. We've even created digital mirrors, augmented reality that shows not just your reflection, but your possibilities. Different hair, different clothes, a future self blinking back at you from a screen that doesn't exist. Even mirrors used for science, the kind that bounce lasers through fiber optic mazes, are now smaller than a grain of sand. We've folded reflection into circuits, into light itself. And yet, the feeling hasn't changed. To look in a mirror is to pause, to see, to wonder, to reflect, not just on what is there, but what isn't. The old rituals remain. We still check ourselves before leaving. We still glance without thinking. We still line the edges of bathrooms and bedrooms and shops with reflections, as if we need that quiet confirmation. Yes, I'm still here. The mirror doesn't care what you look like. It only cares that you looked. Not every reflection is welcome. Even now, even in a world of front-facing cameras and smart mirrors that smile politely, there lingers a hesitation, deep in the culture, woven into stories, tucked behind curtains. A whisper. Some things shouldn't be seen too clearly. Because mirrors don't just reflect the surface. They reflect possibility. And for centuries, humans have looked into them, not for grooming or curiosity, but for signs, for symbols, for truth, or for danger. In ancient myth and folklore, mirrors are rarely just tools. They're gateways, traps, prophecies. The Greeks believed in a kind of optromancy, divination through mirrors. A sick person might be made to look into water inside a mirror, searching for omens. A clear face? Recovery. A distorted image? Something worse. The Japanese Shinto tradition holds the mirror as sacred. One of the imperial regalia is a mirror, said to be so pure and polished that it reflected the truth of the soul. It's not for vanity, it's for honesty. In Chinese culture, ancient bronze mirrors were thought to repel evil spirits. They weren't just decorations, they were protections. It was said that demons, who couldn't bear their own reflection, would flee at the sight of themselves. And in countless Western superstitions, the mirror becomes a warning. Don't break one. Don't look into one at night. Don't let a mirror face your bed. It might reflect your spirit while you sleep, or worse, trap it. In some traditions, mirrors must be covered after a death, so the soul doesn't get confused or lost. Even in stories, mirrors behave strangely. In Snow White, the mirror talks. In Dracula, it reveals nothing. In Alice in Wonderland, it opens into a whole new world, one that looks familiar but isn't. Mirrors in fiction are rarely just mirrors. They're tests. Do you really want to know what's looking back? And yet, despite all the warnings, the strange tales, the hushed customs, we keep them close. We walk past dozens every day. Most of us don't even notice. Others we pause at. Fix a sleeve, smooth our hair. Just look. That quiet ritual of recognition. Mirrors are the original screen. No logins, no subscriptions. Just you, blinking softly in silver. And whatever the myths say about spirits or shadows or hidden selves, the truth is simpler. Or maybe more haunting. You're not afraid of what the mirror might show. You're afraid of what it might not. The mirror in your home doesn't whisper. It doesn't judge. It doesn't predict your future. It doesn't hold secrets. Not really. And yet, every day, you pass it. And most days, it passes you right back. Just a glance. Just a moment. You don't think about it. But you still do it. Before leaving. After coming home. When the light hits a certain way. And the room grows still. You turn. And there you are. Today's mirrors are sharper than ever. They don't ripple like water or blur like old glass. They don't warp or yellow with time. They show everything. Clean, polished, exact. And yet, something has softened. It's not the mirror that's changed. It's the relationship. You don't stare, you check, you nod, you carry on. The mirror isn't a conversation anymore. It's a punctuation mark. Not a who am I, but a yup. Still here. Sometimes, though, you catch yourself. Really catch yourself. A pause, a breath, a strange angle. A moment when the reflection doesn't look quite like how you imagined. Older, softer, stronger, tired, brighter. You tilt your head. The mirror doesn't blink. That's its gift, after all. It never looks away. Not like people do, not like cameras do. It's not curated, not captured, not filtered. It just is. And in a world of noise and screens and scrolling, sometimes that's exactly what you need. Not a performance, not a projection, just presence. So the mirror stays in the corner of the room, in the hallway by the door, in the visor of your car, on your phone, tucked behind a black rectangle of glass that wakes when you do. It asks for nothing. It waits, not to be noticed necessarily, just to be there, in case you need to see, in case you forget, in case you need to come back to yourself for a second. Even if that version isn't quite what you expected, the mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't explain either. It leaves the meaning to you. The mirror has come a long way, from obsidian in a cave to polished copper in ancient Egypt, from forbidden glass in Venice to the wide-eyed shimmer of Versailles, from science and superstition to the cool glow of a phone screen you barely notice you've checked 3 times today. And yet, despite the centuries, the secrets, the glass and mercury and myth, it's still the same. A surface, a pause, a place where you meet yourself. It doesn't matter whether it hangs in a palace or a locker, whether it's framed in gold or taped to a dressing room wall, whether it's curved, cracked, dusty, or digital. The mirror doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to reflect. That's all it's ever done, all it's ever been asked to do. And for thousands of years, that's been enough. Think of the people who've stared into mirrors before you. Scribes, emperors, alchemists, teenagers, astronomers, dancers, soldiers, strangers. Every one of them paused. Every one of them looked. Every one of them wondered, even if only for a second, is that really me? And the mirror, with ancient patience, said nothing, just looked back. Quietly, softly. We don't often think of mirrors as history, but they are. They've seen it all. War paint, powdered wigs, lipstick, tear streaks, wedding veils, exam day nerves, awkward smiles, secret rehearsals, long stares, and fleeting glances. Every human moment, every kind of day. You can hide from a camera, you can scroll past a photo. But a mirror? It waits. It knows. It's seen who you were and who you've become. And so, as the room darkens and the light fades and the world softens into sleep, the mirror is still there, not shining, not watching, just being. A small piece of glass, a little truth, a quiet reminder that you're still here, still you, still reflected, still known.